This is the WrestleBread Podcast, bringing you the latest news, recaps, and analysis of AEW and WWE. Get the unique perspective from a wrestling fan of over 25 years. Here's your host, Jaydee.
What's going on, guys? This is Jaydee here, and this is episode 72 of the WrestleBread Podcast. So first of all, starting out, we lost a legend very early, if you may ask me. Road Warrior Animal, real name Joseph Laurinaitis. He had passed away on September 22nd at age 60. From what I am seeing, it was due to natural causes, but 60 years old, it's still, still young, in my opinion. I remember the Legion of Doom as one of the best tag teams ever. I caught the very tail end of them when they first were in WWE, when I started watching wrestling in 1992. Of course, then they went to WCW, and then they returned to WWF. They were repackaged eventually as Legion of Doom with Sunny. I remembered that. And then a little while after that, they started an angle where Road Warrior Hawk will show up drunk and unable to perform. And back then, he had a lot of alcohol and drug problems. So I felt as though it was kind of inappropriate for them to do that type of an angle. It's very similar to what they're doing with Jeff Hardy in recent storylines. It's very sad, that he is gone. The Road Warriors are now together again in heaven. And it's just crazy that we're now reaching the point of our lives where the legends who we grew up knowing is now gone. And, watching them growing up, they were definitely larger in life. And, you would think that they would live on forever, even though that's an unfair way to look at things. But when you're young and you're seeing these people on TV and the fact that they have on you in your life, it's kind of, as a child, you'd start thinking of it that way. Very sad that, he's gone. Last time he was seen apparently was at an All In event in 2018. And then they did a Dark Side of the Ring about the Road Warriors. So prayers go out to him and his family. And it's just sad and devastating to have another legend gone. More news that we're going about. There has been news of the COVID outbreak in NXT. And I don't think they mentioned who it was that may have been exposed to it. But on AEW's side, it has been reported that Lance Archer has COVID. So I am definitely, worried for Jake the Snake, seeing as though that he's been managing him this whole time. Jake the Snake, of course, is very up there in his years, and we all know that he has some health issues as well. So I'm just very, very nervous for Jake the Snake as well. WWE has come out with wine bottles. They are 2 bottles that they're selling. One has The Undertaker on it. The other has Ultimate Warrior on it. I believe Undertaker's is, I know Ultimate Warrior is Zinfandel. And I forgot what the Undertaker's type of wine is. But they're selling 2 bottles for $100 together. They don't sell them 1 bottle at a time. You have to buy 2 bottles. And it's $20 shipping. So for 2 bottles of wine, it's $120. So the bottles are like $60 each. You're mainly paying for the labels, basically. I mean, you can if you really want to, you can get a bottle of Zinfandel. I think the other bottle is Sauvignon. You can get just a regular bottle of Zinfandel Sauvignon, print out a nice label that has the Undertaker Ultimate Warrior on it, and just wrap it around there and put it on your shelf. I'm a wine person, and I love the Undertaker and I love Ultimate Warrior, but I'm not paying $120, especially for wine that I guess you expect me to drink, and then I guess I'm supposed to keep the bottle for decoration. I'll just do exactly what I suggested and get a nice bottle of wine, print out a wine label, and put it on there and put it with my little collection I have growing. Well, not a collection of wine bottles, but a collection of WWE paraphernalia. Yeah, so it's not worth it in my opinion. I could see if they came down a little bit on those prices, but $60 for one bottle of wine. It better be the best tasting wine ever. And I'm not even a fan of those two flavors. Something else I noticed watching AEW over these past weeks. I'm sorry, but I think it's time for Jim Ross to retire from commentating and maybe concentrate more on, getting talent because the past couple of weeks, he's definitely been fumbling and getting a lot of his, facts incorrect. He not really fumbling over words, but I don't know. The issue with me with AEW is that they have multiple play-by-play guys all at the same time. So you have JR, who, normally gives background to people, and he wants to do play-by-play, but you have Tony Schiavone, who also does play-by-play, and then you have Excalibur, who also does play-by-play, and he is the most knowledgeable of all the AEW stars because he has covered independent wrestling as well. So it's just very weird. Maybe they should go down to 2 guys versus 3, because whenever there's a 3-man commentating team, it's sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work. And I'm realizing more and more each week that having 3 guys who normally does play-by-play together as one team, sometimes it doesn't work. Everybody needs to have their own roles. So, but going into wrestling this week, I completely forgot there is a pay-per-view coming out. The way that Raw has went down, definitely one of the worst Raws recently, I have to say. It just, especially for it to be a go-home show for a pay-per-view event that you want us to pay $10 for, it wasn't worth it at all. The biggest disappointment is Retribution. Now, I have held off, and I would like to try to continue holding off, but there's just no hope for this team. They announced on Raw that the 5 main members of Retribution were signed, which doesn't make sense to me that you signed the group that has destroyed your production team, destroyed your sound and your lights, cut up your ring ropes. I mean, that stuff kind of costs money. You have employees who may try to sue the company, kayfabe wise, may try to sue the company because this, rogue team attacked them and now they're getting paid. So the Retribution has been pretty much a mess from the get-go. And I had hopes that they would be able to, turn this into a better situation. At first, we all laughed at the size of the guys. I felt as though I was taller than some of the people in Retribution. And then now, suddenly we get taller people, and they've multiplied to probably 20 people now. And then we get the 5 people in the mask who we see clearly was Dominik Dijakovic, Mia Yim, Mercedes Martinez as well, and some people couldn't figure out the other 2, but it was Shane Thorne and Dio Madden. I hope I said his last name right. But coming into this Raw, we got a lot more Retribution, including the ridiculous masks that they're wearing. It's like the costume team or, the wardrobe decided to run into a Halloween store and figured, let me grab some masks, and then decided to grab a Jason Voorhees mask, a Bane mask, and a Shredder mask. And then they revealed the names. And I'm hoping that these are just code names and that once they are unmasked that they'll actually use their names from NXT. But I have no hope for these 5 members of Retribution, which is a shame because they have talent, especially Dominik Dijakovic. He has the talent. And it's a shame because now he'll be introduced to the casual crowd as, you know, this Retribution member with this stupid code name. It's just frustrating. And I mean, Shane Thorne, new name is SLAPJACK. And I'm trying to understand who over the age of 12, outside of, you know, a movie, outside of Pirates of the Caribbean or anything pirate related, would be fine with the name of SLAPJACK. And with this, people, of course, is drawing comparisons to the Dark Order, since, you know, they're being named by numbers, and you have them masked, but it's like, it's slightly different because they're unknown. People know Evil Uno, of course, from the independent circuit and everything, and you know other people in the Dark Dark Order from the independent circuit, but these are homegrown talent with WWE. These are people who are in NXT, who they promote, WWE Network, who they promote, you know, on Raw and SmackDown when they talk about what's coming up with NXT from time to time, or with NXT takeovers. It's not like, you know, these are no names. These are your own people. And I don't know how they can make it work. And it's from now, cool story with the Dark Order. When the Dark Order started out, Evil Uno was actually the original leader. And he thought that there would be more, you know, his name would be more popular with the American crowds. But, you know, he wasn't really getting a great reception. So he went to the Young Bucks. And that's when they decided to have someone else as the leader of the Dark Order. And that's when they started talking about an Exalted One. And ironically, when they were talking about the Exalted One, they didn't have an actual person picked. Once Brody Lee was signed, it kind of made more sense, and Brody Lee had agreed to become the Exalted One for the Dark Order. So it kind of worked out itself. At least they realized, like, hey, this isn't working. Let's change this up. Because starting out with the Dark Order, not a lot of people really liked it. And then they started with the vignettes, and it started to catch on with people. And especially now that you have Brody Lee, and it's more of a cult than it is like, you know, just random people destroying stuff. Like that makes a lot more sense, that it is a cult that is with a wrestling company versus, you know, this anarchy, let's destroy everything. We don't like WWE, but we're going to get signed by WWE and only come out at certain points. Like the Dark Order wasn't like destroying everyone. Sometimes they'll randomly come out to attack people, but it wasn't like they were destroying the sets and cutting down ropes and stuff like that. Like it was a lot more organized with the Dark Order than it is with Retribution. Retribution was attacking, but then it was inconsistent, I should say. But the thing with Retribution is they're very inconsistent. They were attacking, you know, Raw and SmackDown, but they weren't attacking during the pay-per-view events, which is held at the same location. And then suddenly they weren't attacking for SmackDown. And whenever they attacked, the locker room wasn't emptying out. I mean, the locker room attacked the production team, things like that. You would think that Vince McMahon will show up and say something about the fact that you have this rogue, you know, group of people who are attacking, you know, the production and taking down your lights and cutting your ropes and stuff like that. So it's just been very, very inconsistent with Retribution. And I have no hope for them. I have no hope. And I try to be optimistic, and I try to not say things to kind of like let things play out. But I don't know how they're going to make anything better with Retribution, especially with the names like SLAPJACK. Dominic Dijakovic name is T-Bar, and Dio's name is Mace. Not as in the rapper, but as in the actual pepper spray. So I don't know, and I can only imagine. And people are now worried about what's the code names for Mia Yim and Mercedes Martinez. And I feel bad for Mercedes Martinez because she has been trying to get into WWE for a very long time, and now she's in WWE. She was in NXT probably for a couple of months, maybe. Didn't really get. I don't think she ever got a title shot in NXT. She definitely hasn't won the title, but I don't think she got a title shot yet in NXT. And then she immediately comes up to the main roster, and she has this gimmick now to introduce herself. But I don't have hope for Retribution. They had an actual match on Raw with the Hurt Business. The rest of Retribution came out, and then Drew McIntyre came out with the Locker Room to help defend Raw. So finally, you have the Locker Room coming out, but now they're officially signed. So it doesn't make any sense, and I can't wait for Retribution to be gone, and that, they'll be unmasked, and we'll actually get to see the true talent of these 5 members. So going into everything else with Raw, we had more of Seth Rollins and the Mysterio family. We're playing this angle again of Rey Mysterio not being the father of his kids. Like we already know about Dominic. Eddie Guerrero has already been proven to be the father of Dominic. He was just letting Rey have custody of him. God bless his soul. And now he's alluding that maybe the daughter might not be Rey Mysterio. And then they replayed the part where she checked on Murphy, and then it led to a segment of him backstage apologizing. I don't know where they're going with this. If Murphy and her are related or something like that. Because he can't be her dad. I know that Seth Rollins was kind of poking fun at the whole paternity issue that they had. But then at the end, after Aaliyah was upset and walks off and everyone walks off, you see like Seth gets like, oh man, I really didn't mean to do this, and I'm very sorry. And I'm like, what? Like, what is going on here? We also had a vignette for Bianca Belair, even though she's been up on the roster for a while, and she was brought up, I believe, after WrestleMania. She was teamed up with her husband. It's been known that her husband is Montez Ford from the Street Profits. She has had matches, so I don't get why we're doing a whole vignette again. The vignette showed how strong she is. She was, going against someone in the gym, showing how strong she is. She was doing pull-ups. She was doing, she was lifting. I forgot what else they showed her doing too. I don't know. I think the issue is, and it's been an issue for a while since the Attitude Era, is that now Raw is 3 hours, and where they used to have enough to fill all 3 hours, for a while. Now that they still have these 3 hours, but they don't have enough content to fill up the 3 hours. So now they are forced to come up with dumb stuff to fill up 3 hours. I mean, we don't need a vignette. We don't need a lot of the backstage interviews that we get that doesn't really push a storyline or anything. I think that if Raw was forced back to 2 hours, they would definitely put a lot of pressure for them to condense things down. A lot of this filler stuff that really doesn't do anything, and make Raw at least somewhat entertaining again. We also had a little video package of R-Truth going to the beach. Akira Tozawa had a ninja ref, and they decided to go to the water because they knew R-Truth was going to the beach. Little Jimmy is back. Glad to see that he is doing okay. Glad to hear that, little Jimmy liked the beach. They decided to go for a swim, and R-Truth had lost his title in the ocean. He went after it. And then you see a shark, which don't really make sense because sharks don't really come. I mean, I'm not an expert, so I could be totally wrong with this, but I don't think sharks come that far up on the shore to where as though, if you are knee deep or waist deep in water, that you would be in danger. But anyway, it showed that apparently Akira Tozawa, or the ninja ref, was attacked by this shark, who appeared twice in this little video package as well. we also had a triple threat match for the number one contender for the tag team title. And I don't understand how Dominic Mysterio was entered into this match to get a shot at the tag team title, especially since he got his ass beat by Seth Rollins so many times. I know, of course, this was basically the story of Mysterio and Seth Rollins and the storyline between Seth Rollins and Murphy, but we could at least gotten some other tag teams, even though WWE has a very high track record of breaking up tag teams and then putting random people together. Not to say that, he didn't do good in this match. Him and Roberto Carlito was very impressive in this matchup. And, it shows that, hopefully down the line they'll be a tag team, but it just didn't make any sense right now for them to be a tag team and then for immediately to get into a match for the number one contendership. I'd rather for something else that happened with Andrade and Angel for them to get that number one title shot, because it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. Let's see, we also have, Miro being very concerned for his wife, the fact that he didn't want anything to happen to her because of his comments. And it looks like nothing really had came from it. We had, a tag team match with her and Natalya versus Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler, where it was pretty much a squash match. Lana getting her ass beat and then was choked out, and it looked like a legit type of choke out because that arm was definitely underneath that chin. We had the Riott Squad on commentary, and Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler come out. They go face to face with Ruby and Liv Morgan. They fought each other a little bit. They acted like they was going to put one through the table. They kind of back off, and then Nia Jax just grabs Lana and just does a Samoa drop onto the table. Didn't look like a lot of fun, but I don't think this had nothing to do with Miro's comments. Nothing to do with it at all. So going into Wednesday night, I'm no longer calling this the Wednesday Night Wars, because I keep saying how we were in the middle of a quarantine where people had nowhere to go. There were no bars open. There were no restaurants open. There was nothing to do except for sit at home. And they still couldn't put up great numbers during the quarantine. So I'm no longer calling it a war, because it's not a war, because both companies are losing. And with the shows on Wednesday, it wasn't even that exciting for it to be called a war. So I really hope that people could stop calling it a war. And I'm really hoping that NXT does get moved to Tuesdays, just so we can stop calling it a war and stop with the comparisons between the two companies, because the two brands, I should say, because it's not working. It's not working at all. So going into AEW, we had Miro's debut match, and he was going against him and Kip Sabian were going against Sonny Kiss and Joey Janela. Which I'm sorry to say, Sonny Kiss and Joey Janela aren't as impressive as a team. I still don't get why they are a tag team. I am too lazy to look it up as to why they randomly became a tag team, what led to it. But Sonny Kiss is doing a lot better in the ring, in my opinion, than she was when she first debuted it. And Joey Janela is just Joey Janela. But Miro, he was somewhat impressive. There was, he hasn't been in the ring for a very long time, so it was a bit of rust. And I don't know where this is going. I feel as though maybe it should have been a better debut match. I guess they wanted to go against someone like Sonny Kiss and Joey Janela. So the fact that whoever they beat isn't going to harm their record. But I feel as though this could have been a heck of a lot better. He still has the same finisher, where I'm a little shocked about, and kept the name of it and everything. Don't know if WWE is going to force him to change it, but I thought that was pretty interesting as well. After that, we got Eddie Kingston's promo where he called out Jon Moxley, said that Jon Moxley sold out, and then proceeded to call him the sports entertainer, which I thought was pretty funny. Eddie Kingston is always good on the mic, so I had no issues with him being on the mic. We also had Brody Lee going against Orange Cassidy. And I may be missing a few things that happened on AEW Dynamite, but these were the highlights that jumped out at me. I like Orange Cassidy. I don't know if I could take him 100% seriously. He had a title shot, and he did the thing with the hands in the pockets, and then the kicks, which is all cool and whatnot, and it really goes over with the fans, but I just don't know about these title shots and these main events that he's getting. And I get that he's very over, but I don't know. I'm not believing it. Brody Lee, of course, wins the match. We had the Dark Order on the outside who interfered with the match as well. And then, of course, after Brody Lee wins, the lights cut off. And I'm like, great. And as soon as the lights come on and it's the spotlight in the middle of the entrance, I already knew it's Cody. Cody Rhodes is the only one who uses that middle entrance. So it was a big giveaway. And then his music played. It would have been a lot more exciting if the lights went out and then he stood at the top of my cat, ladies and gentlemen. If he stood at the top of the ramp or something. But for us to go through the lights go out and then the spotlight and then the music plays and then the intro of his theme has to play full out and then we get the pyro, the smoke, and then him come out. It was like, it kind of ruined it for me. It kind of ruined the surprise for me because you had to sit there and wait for him to show up. It would have been a lot more of a shock factor. It would have been a bigger pop if the lights went out and then the lights come on and he was standing at the entrance. We didn't really need the music and the damn pyro and then the smoke. Like, I get it. And it gave away when they were using the middle entrance because he's the only one that uses it. I still don't understand that part. But Cody Rhodes comes back. He returns with dark hair, which I am all for. I'm not really a big fan of him with the blonde hair. Kind of looked a bit weird to me. But him with the dark hair, all for it. All for it. He goes in, starts attacking all of the Dark Order. Brody Lee then cuts a promo backstage. He mentions, oh my gosh. I forgot, I meant to write down what it was that he had said, but it was a great promo. He did come at Brandy. Oh, he said that godforsaken tattoo on your neck. He talked about Brandy posting photos on Instagram. He talked about his family basically and was like, face me. Basically, I'm going to beat the shit out of you again. It was one of the better promos that Brody Lee has cut, I have to say. But I don't know. With Cody, man, the Cody and Friends thing with this special entrance, I'm not a fan of it. It really, it killed the mood and it killed the return for me to have all that happen for him to return. We also had the women's tag team match with Thunder Rosa and Shida versus DeMonte and Ivelisse. This was a pretty good match with the two champions. Thunder Rosa's face paint was a tribute to Road Warrior Animal, which was cool. And of course, Thunder Rosa and Shida had won the match. I'm all for Thunder Rosa to be, having matches in AEW. I think NWA is back. I'm not 100% sure. But to have this cross promotion is awesome because you get to know more about Thunder Rosa. And if you're interested in Thunder Rosa, then you take a peek at NWA and it gives NWA a little bit more exposure, especially the fact that they're on mainly YouTube. We had a backstage promo with Jericho and MJF where, it was pretty funny. MJF and Chris Jericho together are pretty hilarious. And then we ended the show with the matchup between Jon Moxley and Eddie Kingston. Jon Moxley winning with that same chokehold that he did, I think it was to MJF. Or I forgot who he did it against. I don't know. I'm not a fan of that chokehold. It doesn't look at, it reminds me, it gives me the same feelings of when Bobby Lashley does the full Nelson. It doesn't look as devastating to me. It was basically kind of like it is somewhat of a different version of the bank statement. So going into NXT side, we had the Women's Battle Royal. Casey with the Kofi Kingston type of saves. We also, this was mainly, Rhea Ripley and Raquel Gonzalez, I think her name is, rivalry. The last two was Shotzi Blackheart and Candice LeRae. Very unique type of finish where they ended up on the stairs. And Candice LeRae was able to kick Shotzi Blackheart off the stairs. And Candice LeRae now gets a title shot. So at the next takeover, which is on October 4th, we're going to have Io Shirai versus Candice LeRae. And Johnny Gargano came out to celebrate with his wife. We also had Damian versus Austin Theory, which was a good matchup. I'm very happy that Damian Priest is the NXT North American champion. We also had, I forgot his first name, but I wrote down Howland. He was pretty impressive. We also had that five-way elimination match for the number one contender for Finn Balor's NXT Championship. It was Kushida who came out first with Kyle O'Reilly, then Bronson Reed, then Thatcher, and then Grimes. Kushida was eliminated out first, which I was a bit surprised about. Then Bronson Reed, then Thatcher, and the final two was Grimes and Kyle O'Reilly, and then Kyle wins the match for him to set up between him and Finn Balor, which I hope will be a very good match for TakeOver. So like I said, we have a pay-per-view event this Sunday. Clash of Champions Gold Rush. Sounds like another, tagline that we would love to do, the Gold Rush. I feel like I have to talk like, Pirates of the Caribbean every time I say that. So going into my predictions, starting out, we have the Raw Women's Championship, which is going to be on the pre-show. I think the United States Championship should have went on the pre-show, because I feel as though this matchup would be a lot more exciting than the United States Championship. But we have Asuka going against Zelina Vega. I'm going to, as much as I like Zelina Vega, I'm going to stick with Asuka on this one. Unless something happens, if Zelina Vega has, a new client or something like that. But for the fact that this is going to be on a pre-show, I don't think there's going to be a title change. But I could very well be wrong. But I'm going to go with Asuka. Next up, we have the United States Championship, Bobby Lashley versus Apollo Crews. I'm going to have Bobby retain his title. I'm tired of this matchup between him and Apollo Crews. I think that Cedric Alexander will take part in this, will interfere in this matchup, I should say. I highly doubt that this is going to be some type of ruse where Cedric Alexander is actually a face, but he only joined the Hurt Business or something like that to get Apollo Crews' title back. I don't know. I don't see it going, I don't see Apollo Crews winning this title. Next up, we have the Street Profits versus Andrade and Angel Garza for the Raw Tag Team Championship. I'm going to go with Andrade and Garza. I think that the fact that Zelina Vega had left them is going to make them more determined. And I don't know, I'm tired of the Street Profits. They're very entertaining, but I can't take them seriously a lot with the cups raining and stuff like that. I hate that entrance with the red cups coming down. I'm sure a lot of people are very excited to see all those cups that they buy from the dollar store wasted. Because what are they going to do? They can't recycle them. It's COVID. So it has to all go in the trash. But I don't know. I'm ready for Andrade and Angel Garza to be the tag team championship. After that, we have Jeff Hardy versus AJ Styles versus Sami Zayn, a triple threat ladder match for the Intercontinental Championship. I think this will be the matchup of the night. I don't know. I'm going to go with Sami Zayn on this one, but I know this is going to be the match of the night. I'm somewhat forgiving of them constantly giving us Hardy versus Styles for free, when now we have Sami Zayn in the mix. And I think this is definitely going to be the match of the night with this ladder match. All three men are so talented, and we're throwing in a ladder with this. Spots galore. This is going to be an exciting match. After that, we have Cesaro and Shinsuke Nakamura versus the Lucha House Party for the WWE SmackDown Championship. I think the artists are going to retain these titles. I think this will drive a further wedge with the Lucha House Party. We had Kalisto and Dorado constantly bickering the past couple of weeks, so I think this will continue on as well. After that, we have Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler versus Ruby Riott for the Women's Tag Team Championship. The Riott Squad, Ruby Riott and Liv Morgan. I'm going to go with the Riott Squad on this one. I'm still not exactly sold with Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler as a tag team. I think they're going to lose the title, and it's going to start that program of them going against each other. After that, we have Bayley versus Nikki Cross for the SmackDown Women's Championship. I think this can go either way because we have Sasha Banks, who could come back and interfere in this matchup. And we also have Alexa Bliss, who can interfere in this matchup as well and cost Nikki her title shot. I'm going to go with Bayley on this one. I think Bayley will retain her title until her and Sasha start feuding. Maybe Sasha interferes in this match and costs Nikki the title shot by attacking Bayley and having the match get DQ'd. I think for any match to end in a disqualification, I think this is the one. But I think Bayley is going to retain her title anyway. So after that, we have Roman Reigns with Paul Heyman going against Jey Uso for the Universal Championship. I think Roman Reigns is going to keep his promise that he's going to beat Jey Uso's ass just like they did when they were kids. Roman Reigns apparently will have new attire at this point and new music. It'll be coming later on too as well. So I'm going to have Roman Reigns retain his title. I don't know when he's going to lose his title, but I'm all down for this streak to keep on going. I know that Roman Reigns won't be able to show up halfway through the match like he usually does, but I think Roman Reigns is going to win this match. And then finally, we have Drew McIntyre and Randy Orton for the ambulance match. I have a big problem with this match because Drew McIntyre allegedly has a fractured jaw. And I'm not a doctor, but normally when you have a fractured jaw, it hurts to talk. Because when you talk, you're moving your jaw, right? And the fact that Drew McIntyre has been cutting all these promos, he's been yelling, he talks with his mouth wide open, and he is saying that, I can't injure my jaw or else I would, have to forfeit my title. And then Randy Orton puts a chair to his jaw and he was able to talk after that, which makes no sense to me. I don't get how you have a fractured jaw and you're still able to talk. I think this is going to play into it. And I think this is where we're going to get the title change as well. And I'm going with Randy Orton. I think the stipulation was added. I think Randy Orton's going to do something with Drew McIntyre and his fractured jaw, which makes no sense. Maybe even if it's a hairline, fractured, it still hurts to talk. And he's talking like there is no pain. Especially when he was cutting a promo and he started talking like, I hurt my jaw. And then he was like, oh, Keith Lee. And I'm like, yo, you have a fractured jaw. Like, someone needs to YouTube this type of stuff. But I'm going to go with Randy Orton on this one. I think Randy Orton's going to win the title. We're going to see Drew McIntyre go away for a little bit because he's going to have this fractured jaw, allegedly. I think Randy Orton's going to do something to further injure his jaw as well. But that's what all my predictions for Clash of Champions. I think this is going to be, on paper, this should be a pretty good pay-per-view. But who knows? Maybe Retribution will show up and destroy the whole thing. Who knows? But that's my predictions. And that's it for the WrestleBread podcast. Thank you so much for listening. Be sure to follow me on Twitter at Jaydee Talks. That's Jayde Talks. and follow the podcast at WrestleBread as well. Be sure to follow my friends, Keita and Jay from the Keita and Jay Show. I will actually be on an episode of theirs, more likely talking about Clash Champions and everything that has happened this past week. Julian and Rob Bass from the Wrestling Court Podcast on TurtleMinds.com. Chris from We Talks Next, which is featured on the Keita and Jay Show. My boys over at Powerbomb Jitsu. Nando and Larry from Half K Podcast, and Devin and Hafiz from Clark Street Wrestling. Next week, it'll be still one episode. I know that I was supposed to do 2 episodes, but with everything that happened this week, I decided to kind of combine the 2 and kind of make it 1 episode. So there won't be another episode this week because I just gave my predictions. I highly doubt they're going to add any other matches since this is basically a pay-per-view with championship matches. So all the matches are pretty much set in stone. So next week, I will be putting out my review of Clash of Champions and then a prediction show for NXT TakeOver in October 4th. So until next time, guys, peace.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed the show, be sure to subscribe and leave a review. Check us out at WrestleBread.com and subscribe to WrestleBread on YouTube for more breaking news and JD's opinions.